Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by editor of the wolfpacker.com, fellow co-host Matt Carter, and we're going to break down NC State's victory over Wake Forest. Another ranked matchup between the Wolfpack and the Demon Deacons. NC State coming out on top 30-21. We talked about it on the preview podcast. Now we're going to break down what actually happened. And, I think it's safe to say that Matt and I were both pleasantly surprised based on, especially to those that listen to our Wake Forest game preview. But we'll get into all that good stuff. We'll break down what we saw on offense, on defense, on special teams, what to look for the rest of the year, and just some general thoughts. But before we get into all that good stuff, some quick reminders for the listeners and viewers at home. Please watch us on our YouTube channel. You can always watch us on our YouTube channel, and when you go to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. We're over the halfway point between 1,000 and 2,000 followers or subscribers rather on YouTube. So if you have not already punched that subscribe button, please do so. It'd be great if we could get to 2,000 by the end of the football season. And if you have not subscribed already, that would help us out tremendously. So head over to the Wolfpacker YouTube channel, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment while you're at it. You can also listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Play. Please follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at the Wolfpacker on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will on Twitter. And head over to thewolfpacker.com. Take advantage of a special deal for just $10. You get premium subscription to the beginning of next college football season. So that's going to take you through the end of August 2023. Just $10, better part of a year. Holidays are coming up, so I believe you can always gift that subscription as well. Time to start thinking about that. So, maybe there's an NC State fan in your life that you want to get a gift, but you don't want to spend too much money on. $10 is not a lot of money. That's a stocking stuffer. That's like minimum stocking stuffer money right there. So you might as well get them a subscription to the wolfpacker.com. What a great gift to give to your fellow Wolfpackers. So head over to wolfpacker.com, take advantage of that deal. And last but not least, we're talking about stocking stuffers. Here's some other ideas. Head over to rogueshop.com. That's rogueshop.com, ROGUE shop.com. Proud sponsor of the Wolfpacker podcast. If you support us, please go support them. They have great premium CBD and Delta 8 cannabis products, whether it's cartridges, oils, flower itself, lotions, edibles, all kinds of great products to help you with your health and wellness. These products are really great for if you have problems sleeping at night, if you have chronic pain, inflammation, if you suffer from stress and anxiety. I think most of us out there, struggle with at least one of those things. So these products are really great to help with really any of those symptoms in a natural way. Founded by a husband and wife. The husband is a disabled veteran that was turned on to these products, dealing with some of those symptoms himself, and such a positive experience for him. It's changed his life for the better so much that he wanted to share it with the rest of you, including Wolfpack Nation. So that's why they sponsor the Wolfpacker podcast. Head over to rogueshop.com and support them. They're great folks with great quality products. You can use their chat feature on rogueshop.com if you're curious about, what products might best suit your needs. So head over there now, rogueshop.com. That's ROGUE shop.com. And tell them the Wolfpacker sent you. All right, Matt.
Real quick note, those guys are also on our message board. So just subscribe, or they will respond to you if you have any kind of questions on our message board as well.
That's right. Yeah, head over to the message board, and and another great reason to take advantage of that deal, so that you can. That's another feature. You can talk to Rogue Shop on the message board. But you know who I'd like to talk to? MJ Morris, because he's a rising star. And if you, I'm sure the last one-on-one you had with MJ Morris, Matt, was when he committed to NC State. In fact, I think I remember. I think I had that. interview, if I'm not mistaken, or right after he committed.
Mm-hmm.
But a great kid, and clearly looks like he is proving to be a great leader for this team, even at a young age as a true freshman. But I think that's where we have to start. There's a lot of good to go around, Matt. Just a quick recap: NC State wins this game 30-21. Really, with there was never a doubt in my mind once NC State took control of this game. I got a few texts from some NC State friends after Wake Forest scored that last football, or, last touchdown. Like, here we go again, or I'm like, guys, settle down. That was the first touchdown Wake Forest had scored in the second half. NC State's defense was flying around all night. Had Sam Hartman in fits. Multiple picks from Mr. Hartman, 3 on the night. And I thought, you know what? You know what NC State does best? They really know how to drain some clock when they have the ball. So I feel very, very confident in NC State when it has a lead. And NC State did exactly that. Took care of the football, iced the game with a Chris Dunn 25-yard field goal. Easy chip shot for Mr. Dunn, arguably starting to become inarguable at this point. Might be the best kicker in NC State college football program history. But I'm throwing a lot at you, Matt. I think we should start with MJ Morris. What I'm trying to get at is NC State played probably its most well-rounded, all-around game all season, and they did that exactly when it was needed. So you want to talk about what do you want to talk about first, Matt? You want to talk about just the all-around effort from the Wolfpack, or do you want to start with the rising star where I think inspired that performance, which is MJ Morris?
I'll start with the all around. I think that's kind of I wrote about it. I know Joe Giglio also wrote about it at WIL.com. Yeah, this was kind of a performance you and I would be talking about in preseason, that this is kind of what we think NC State could be, the upside, right? It's a different cast of characters. You didn't think MJ Morris would be the quarterback. You thought it would be Devin Murray. You probably didn't think Michael Allen would be getting big carries in the game as a true freshman, or that Terrell Timmons would be getting chances to catch deep balls. So it's a little bit different cast of characters, but the performance against Wake Forest, I felt like, was kind of the performance you thought this team was capable of doing back in the preseason, and frankly, hasn't happened this year. I know Justin's probably familiar with Bill Connolly, the analytical guru of college football. He puts out a spreadsheet in which he kind of, he puts out all the numbers and lays it out, and then it's kind of like in baseball, right? When the ball gets hit, you just say, would this been a home run? This would have been a base hit 90% of the time, based on the exit velocity and the angle and all that good stuff in the ballpark. And so Bill Connolly does something kind of similar. He puts all the numbers and said, this is a win, X percent of the time. And actually, NC State leads the country right now in wins in games and what probably shouldn't have been wins statistically. East Carolina was one. I believe Florida State was the biggest one. And I think the other one may have been Virginia Tech.
Considering it was down 21-3, I'd probably safe assumption.
Yeah. So, and then even Texas Tech statistically, even though NC State won that game comfortably, statistically wasn't a dominant performance. And so this was probably the first time that NC State looked like, hey, that's the preseason top 15 team we all thought could be there. And they did it in every phase. Obviously, MJ Morris, we'll talk a lot about him. But the defense, to hold that Wake Forest offense to 21 points, and to do it in not as fluky as, I don't want to downgrade what Louisville did, but Louisville got 8 turnovers, right? And some of those were just ball bounced off a receiver's hand, or receiver didn't run around right route type of deal. NC State was more straight up, just absolutely dominated the run game, and if it wasn't for that 99-yard touchdown drive you alluded to, Wake Forest would have had a season low in total yards in the game. You talk about special teams. Christopher Dunn made a 51-yard field goal. Backup punter comes in because starting punter's got a thigh bruise. And Caden Noonkester, pride of Marvin Ridge High School in Waxhaw, North Carolina. I had to look it up last night. Hits a 55-yard punt and then later gets one pinned at the 1-yard line, which I'm not sure how it got pinned at the 1-yard line, to be honest with you. But and then
it was a pretty egregious
yeah,
missed call
yeah.
from those watching it at home.
I'm guessing the ACC network crew, Hasselbeck, pretty good about calling out missed
Oh,
stuff.
he immediately was like, I mean, there were multiple pass interferences that not the best night for the referees, but one that if you're an NC State fan, I would not be complaining about the officiating.
I will say for Wake benefit, none of them cost them anything. Because I saw that too. But I know there was one pass interference where they pick up the flag, and I have no idea why they picked up the flag. But Wake ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive anyway. And on the 99-yard drive, they ended up scoring a touchdown anyway. So, and then obviously the offense. It wasn't a stellar night for the offense. Got off to another slow start. But you can see where now you have confidence that with MJ Morris at quarterback, you can get the necessary amount of points with your defense to win games. And if the defense can hold Wake Forest to 21 points, they held Florida State, by the way, which is a very good, sneaky good offense, to 17. It's there. I mean, now you feel like, okay, we can win every game because we got a quarterback that can get us enough points. He got the dimension with his legs. He throws the ball really well. The receivers last night, best game by a mile for the NC State receiving core this season, making tough catches. So it was just an all-around really nice, not perfect, but really nice performance.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the exact type of performance that this game required. This Wake Forest team to me did not look like a top 10 squad in the country. Was a little bit beat up. It was missing its best player on defense. Sam Hartman, of course, did not live up to some of the hype. He did finish with 397 yards, by the way. Those 3 picks, I feel like in the second half, he just felt that he had to start getting aggressive against this NC State defense because there's just nothing doing in the run game for the Deacs all night. NC State's, essentially the game plan on offense for any opponent of NC State, you're going to have to find a way to produce without running the football because unless you've got an elite offensive line and elite running back, you're probably not going to have much success in the run game against this Wolfpack front, assuming it's healthy. Wake Forest finishes the night with just 17 rushing yards net. Of course, that includes Sam Hartman's loss of 14 yards on sacks. But, I mean, we're still talking about, take sacks out of the equation. We're still talking about less than 2 yards a carry. Very dominant performance in that regard. And, yeah, I mean, Hartman, that last interception he threw was kind of a head scratcher. But you really got to credit NC State's defensive scheme. I mean, it was an all-around effort on defense. I think we talked about it a little bit in the preview, Matt, that this is going to be a huge game for those defensive backs to prove that this is one of the better units, if not the top unit in the ACC in the backfield, and certainly made Sam Hartman pay in that second half. I think we should focus a little bit more on MJ Morris here for a second, and Michael Allen. I'm glad you brought him up too, because first of all, man, does he look big? I mean, he's just a big dude. He does not look like a true freshman. Neither does MJ Morris, but both of them getting it done effectively. Michael Allen, 5 carries for 36 yards. I mean, every time he touched the football. Matt, you've said this in the past. Sometimes you can just tell when a running back has that just like extra gear, or they just look like, you can just almost tell when they look like they're going to be a future pro. And I know it's very early, but he looked like he looked like a guy that maybe could be playing on Sundays in a few years, just with his physical assets. I mean, once he starts getting some more reps and starts understanding the offense a little bit more, he could be a really scary player because he's got the physicality and he's got the speed and he's got just the athleticism to make some of these guys miss. But getting distracted here, MJ Morris does give you hope for this offense. This is the best offensive performance I've seen from NC State all season for 4 quarters, and that includes a lackluster first quarter that MJ Morris probably wishes he had some of those early opportunities back. Had missed a couple deep balls, had opportunities, just overthrew them a little bit. Maybe that's the nerves. Maybe that's just that was his first career start at Carter Finley Stadium, his first time knowing that this is his team. So that's got to be a little bit nerve-wracking for an 18-year-old young man. But he collected himself and did the job. Great finish to the game. Ends up finishing with 18 completions for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. Most importantly, hasn't thrown a pick in these past 2 games when he's been the guy. So yeah, I mean, Matt, I was trying to allude to it in the intro, but I think more importantly than just MJ Morris's pure play on the field, which is great, it's really been the most production that NC State's gotten out of the quarterback position all season, and it's paid dividends so that this offense has been the most explosive it's been all season, or at least productive. But what I think this does is he inspires the whole team to play better. I mean, you could see the guys on the sideline were just gravitating towards this guy. He takes that. There's a play. It was either in the third or fourth quarter. I'm forgetting specifically when it was, but it was later in the game when NC State had control of the game, and MJ Morris's helmet slips off on a run play, and one of Wake Forest defenders kind of does a little extra dirty work in the trenches and kind of drags his knee over his head, and kind of a dirty play. It was a no call on that specific play, but you immediately saw NC State's players stick up for Morris and get in the guy's grill and protect their player. And I mean, it's all smiles and they're listening to him on the sideline. I mean, he's got to be one of the younger guys on that sideline. So it's just a lot of really, really promising things are happening. And it's really, to me, it's put a second win. Me personally, I think it's got to put a second win in Wolfpack Nation to just finish out this season strong. And there's still hope that, this could still be a really, really unique special season with 10 wins still very much on the table with this guy.
Yeah, I like what you hit it. I got a very I don't know what the word is, but people gravitate towards it. I think he can't help. I had a buddy of mine that a UNC fan said he can't help but like him. He watched him on the ACC huddle after the game where he was on set with the guys, and you can't help but like the kid. And he's a little bit older for a freshman. He's 19 years old, so maybe he's got a little bit more maturity than your average college freshman. Got a lot more maturity than I did as a college freshman, for sure. But
no question.
Yeah. Got a lot more maturity than I probably did as a college senior, for that matter. But that's a different story. I think the little things he does that he kind of what makes quarterback a hard position to evaluate is you don't know what they're going to do. It's one thing in high school, but when you have grown men twice your size who can run nearly as fast as you do, if not faster, bearing down, wanting to do nothing but take your head off, how do you respond to that? And I think the touchdown pass he threw to Dale Jones was a good example of, Dale Jones was on the right side of the field running all the way across the end zone. And he just needed a little more time. You could tell he was going to get open if he got, I happened to see the whole play unfold. You could tell he was going to be open if he got a little more time. What did MJ do? Just very kind of subtle fashion. left the pocket, rolled to his left with Dale Jones almost, and got that time he needed, and then threw a nice pass that only Dale Jones could get. Um, that's something that is the it factor. That's an it factor decision and move right there. Not a lot of quarterbacks have that kind of thinking under pressure with bodies falling around him and guys coming after him to make just a very subtle move like that. So yeah, it's impressive. As you and I talked last week, what's he gonna do when the book is out on him? Because Wake had a book on him, and it's not a thick book yet. And there's still tests to come. He hasn't been on the road yet either, so we'll see what he does when he goes to Louisville in a couple of weeks. That is an extremely aggressive defense. They're one of the nation's leaders in sacks and interceptions and all that. And he's gonna have to go to their place.
And they still have plenty to play for.
Yeah, they're on a roll right now. That's a good James Madison team they beat yesterday after beating Wake Forest the week before. So, look, there's still a lot of tests to come, but based on what he did against Virginia Tech and Wake Forest, you're saying, okay, if you're looking ahead next year, and let's say Devin Leary moves on, tries the NFL, you feel okay. You feel like we don't necessarily have a quarterback competition or a controversy or anything of that nature. It's MJ Morris's team. And you feel good about that. And then, like I said, you feel good that now you have a quarterback that can, against Boston College, North Carolina, maybe Louisville, score enough points to win the game. And that's all you've been looking for this year. Can we score enough points to win games against good teams? And now you feel that way. You knew that you're going to get the tougher offenses were coming up, and could you score enough? And they did. And yeah, the runs he had on that last drive. Well, you talked about you were confident when NC State got a lead and they can shorten up a game. How confident Justin Williams is, and kind of calm down his fellow NC State fan texting him.
Extremely.
Yeah. Well, look, MJ Morris even adds another dimension to that, right? Because he gives you another ball carrier in the back. And what did he do on that last drive? He had his two best runs of the game. The last one was the run where you were talking about, where the kid from Wake Forest kind of did the cheap, dirty bottom of the pile move. The only problem was he wasn't on the bottom of a pile. It was just him and MJ Morris and 50,000 fans all seeing what he's doing at the time.
Yeah. How that was not an unsportsmanlike penalty, I have
Yeah, but
no
you know what?
idea.
He got flagged like 2 plays later.
He did.
He
did. It was an interesting.
Saw replay what he did. So I'm wondering if ACC headquarters are still in Greensboro, I believe. I don't know if they moved to Charlotte yet, but I'm wondering if somebody in Greensboro radioed in to the officials. Yeah, you guys totally missed that. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it does make you wonder.
And I think it's important to mention, Matt, you brought up Bill Connolly's win probability metrics. The nerds like to lay out the stats of, well, here's who actually should have won the game. Not like throw out the final score. Well, the final score is really the only metric that matters, but who really should have won this game? And of course, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, NC State leading the country currently in wins that they probably shouldn't have had.
Yeah.
But you got credit for some of that. It comes back to the coaches, comes back to the decision making, and you got to tip your cap to the staff all around to be in the position that NC State is now, considering when you lose your starting quarterback, you lose the big game of the year down at Clemson, and in a fashion that you never really felt like you really had a chance down there. And then you lose a disappointing game to Syracuse. You pick up those 2 early losses. The bye week came at exactly the right time, but even after the bye week, you still didn't know who your guy was. And for everything to come together, and for NC State to be 7-2 now, 3 games remaining, and to have it's a blessing in a true freshman quarterback that is undoubtedly your guy for the rest of this season and probably going into next. You just got to tip your cap to the staff, because NC State could very, very easily not be 7-2 right now. It could very, very easily be closer to 500. And I think you talk about wins above replacement. That's a popular baseball terminology. I mean, if you just have some middle of the road coach with this team, I think it's a 500 squad. I mean, for those, if you're questioning the effectiveness of Dave Doran, this is what longevity in a program does. This is what having a guy and sticking with him does. In the sense that you can build a program and you can build it to a point where when the BS of the season starts to hit, you can still barrel down, put your head down, and still find a way to have a really good season. And I don't know. As an NC State guy, I couldn't be prouder of the program, and I couldn't be prouder of the head coach representing it, and the great staff that he's put together. I don't mean to try to sound like a fanboy here. And in fact, I feel like I'm the antithesis of an NC State fanboy if I'm crediting the coaching staff. But I don't know what you think about all that, Matt. But I'm very impressed with the staff, and I hope it continues to remain the same.
Yeah, go back to last night. We talked. I believe we talked in the preview podcast. If there was and I know I put it in the Scout and Wake Forest story. If there's a weakness in Wake Forest, there was the offensive line, right on the offense. Yeah, unbelievable skill talent, but the offensive line, while old and veteran, was not necessarily playing very well this year and got exposed by Louisville. So what did NC State do defensively last night? They dialed up.
Blitzed all damn night.
They dialed up the pressure incredibly. So that's good coaching. Taking what you learned. And I believe we did. We talked about it. Could anything be taken away from that Louisville game for NC State? We kind of said, 8 turnovers. I mean, that's not a team that turns the ball over a lot. Can't really. Well, yeah, there was. Dial up the pressure. Bring it. Bring the heat. They did, and it was one of the best defensive performances Wake Forest went up against this year. And so that's good coaching. And look, game management there. I mean, the game management against Virginia Tech. I know a lot of fans wanted them to, when they took the 22-21 lead and got the ball back with 5.5 minutes to go, people wanted them to not get conservative. Well, conservative work, and they ran out the last 5:35 of the clock against Wake Forest. That drive to answer the touchdown was huge, and it was done on the ground. And they dialed up plays that worked. They milked the clock. They put the game away both times, literally once and practically in the other. So that's good coaching. So look, NC State's been fortunate a little bit this year too. Missed field goal. East Carolina missed extra point, both in one game. Very fortunate there. I mean, they weren't fortunate with some of the goal line situations in that game. Obviously, Florida State gonna win. I see every Florida State fan a few times a week bemoaning that loss at NC State, how they should never have lost that game. Probably true. Yeah, Virginia Tech, they blew a lead to Georgia Tech. So in hindsight, they probably should have been happy that they were up 21-3 on NC State. But they're a little bit fortunate and a lot of good coaching this year. And it gets you to 7-2. You'll be heavily favored to get to 8-2. That'll put you at 500 once again in the ACC with another chance for a winning record in the ACC. You're knocking on the door for another 9-win season and maybe getting that elusive 10-win season. Been ranked in every poll this year. You have a long streak of ranking that will continue in the college football poll, playoff poll. Going on, it should be against, barring a catastrophe against Boston College, a second straight undefeated home schedule. And if they don't blow a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter to number 11 Miami in the COVID year, when De'Aaron King was dropping dimes on 50-yard passes into a 1-yard window in the back of the end zone, they would have 3 straight undefeated home winning seasons. So What more? I mean, other than a conference championship, which I get, it's a big thing. There's not a whole lot more you can want from a football program. But
But this, but we also have to remind ourselves, as NC State fans know all too well, the system of getting to an ACC championship is very much. I mean, I don't want to use the word rigged, but it's this, the cards are stacked up against NC State year in year out in the current setup, and this is the last year of the current setup.
yep, yep.
And it
There have
stinks
been
that this is.
multiple years where NC State was, and this I want to get on my high horse here because that bugs me to no end. I see some of these media members I respect unbelievably, and I like quite a bit, and they say, "Oh, not like NC State would be a coastal juggernaut." That's not the point. That has never been the point. The point is that NC State, maybe like, I don't know, them and maybe Louisville, I think will be the only two programs never to play in an ACC championship game. Why? Because they were in the Atlantic. When Florida State and Clemson represented it, as well as went to playoffs and BCS title games and whatever, for like better part of 15 years. And the Coastal stunk. And there have been multiple years in that time where NC State would have represented the Coastal. Probably. If they were on that side of the coin. But they weren't. And so your point is entirely taken. I mean, let's see what now. Get rid of divisions. Let's see if there can be an ACC championship game in the future.
Well, maybe I'm giving you a column idea, Matt. I think I would have I would have already been drafting this column if I were still a full-time member of the Wolfpacker. As if I were still a staff writer. But think of a world that this season, 5 years from now, think about where NC State would be going into these last three games. In 5 years, the ACC is going to have its two best records in the ACC championship. NC State would be in play for that second spot in the conference with, the only team, the team it would be chasing, UNC. They still have UNC on the schedule, and Syracuse. I think they now dropped to 2 ACC losses. So,
yeah,
you'd need to be relying on another Syracuse loss, but based on how they looked up at Pittsburgh yesterday, that would still very much be in the equation.
They got to play Florida State. They still have to play Wake Forest. I mean, that's just...
Yeah. So 5 years from now, you're looking at take the results of this season, just take the setup of what it's going to be 5 years from now. NC State would be very much in the thick of the battle to get into the ACC championship, despite everything that's happened. And I mean, you could still be talking about this team as a potential college football playoff hopeful, because when the field expands to 12, that's going to make it possible for the NC States of the world to maybe get to that, to maybe get in. Because, even if NC State had its picture perfect season, made it to the ACC championship game, won it, still hard to imagine that NC State would have, the NC State would have had to run the table essentially to get into a college football playoff. At 12-1, NC State was not going to get into the college football playoff. And now kind of takes us to our, good way to maybe wrap up this podcast. Clemson now with one loss, don't see them getting into the college football playoff at this point.
Not the way they lost.
With 4 teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, this season, 5 years from now, NC State would still have ACC championship on the table, would still have college football playoff on the table.
And you mentioned like that should be chasing North Carolina. Well, North Carolina wouldn't be getting the greatest setup in the history of football. I think I was talking, I'm not going to mention the name because I don't know if he wants me to mention the name, but it was like they looked into the analytics, and the analytics showed that what would a good team have playing UNC's schedule? An undefeated season. What would an average team have playing UNC's schedule right now? UNC's record. Yeah. And it really is a mind-boggling schedule setup that they got. That's not their fault. They can only play the teams in front of them. They have nothing to defend at all. Period. 6 wins on the road. That's pretty impressive for them. Even though, if I go back and look at some of the performances I see from UNC, because I only tell you that because I watched that game against Virginia, and I'm thinking if they played like this against any team in the Atlantic, not named Boston College, they lose. Period.
Yeah.
Bottom line, they would have lost if they played that way, like they played against Virginia. Virginia team that had not scored it. They didn't score a touchdown in a 4 overtime game against Miami. Had 4 touchdowns against UNC and was winning at halftime. I mean, uh, and they don't get the benefit of that schedule going forward. That was my point. Now all those coastal teams have to play. We're all in the same boat, right? It's going to be a
Right.
much more equitable schedule going forward. So you may not even be, like, hypothetically, you may not even be chasing a UNC.
Yeah, because maybe you didn't have to play Syracuse. Maybe you had Virginia that week
Yeah,
instead.
exactly. Not playing Syracuse, as Dave Dorn noticed last night. You could tell he was still bugged about it. Playing Syracuse off a bye, and the week before they played Wagner. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
NC State lost their quarterback while they were on the bye. So,
That one stings. That Syracuse loss really stings in hindsight because just the timing of the year. Like you really wish you had if you could have just traded Boston College and Syracuse out, like in the schedule order of
yeah.
things, now it all happens for a reason, and you need Jack Chambers was always going to get his opportunity, and you didn't really know you were never going to get to MJ Morris without seeing Jack Chambers,
And I don't
struggle in
have a
this
problem with
offense.
that, by the
So
way. I know a lot of people are asking why would MJ Morris not starting. You know how many reps MJ Morris was probably getting on a weekly basis during the month of September?
not many.
1 or 2 a week.
Third string. I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
well, plus we don't know. I mean, there's no media access to practice, so we don't know what happens in practice.
yeah.
MJ Morris could have sucked in practice all year for all we know. He could just be a gamer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like and the same could be true about Jack Chambers. He could have looked great in practice, and then get out to the game and just it doesn't click. But I alluded to it, Matt. This is how I want to finish out this podcast, and I don't mean to put like a stink in the air, but we did mention that Clemson lost, which means that Clemson is probably not going to go to the college football playoff, which means that the New Year's Six Bowl probably off the table. Is there still any chance at this
Yeah.
point, Matt? Your what the best case scenario projection for NC State? If it wins the rest of these games, what's NC State looking at?
A really nice ball game. Let's remember now, Notre Dame, in its sweetheart deal of one of John Swofford's many great accomplishments as commissioner of ACC, they get one of those bowl slots now. They get slotted into the ACC's bowl contracts because they're not going to the playoffs. So,
That's sarcasm
yeah,
for those that couldn't pick up on it.
yeah. So, I don't know how that's going to influence things. You win out, you're going to get a really nice bowl game. I would think Orlando, would possibility, but they may want Notre Dame. I don't know. I mean, no bowl can pass up Notre Dame if they can get Notre Dame. So who knows? Maybe they're going back to San Diego.
That'd
Finally
be
get to
cool.
play the game that they got missed out on.
Could be. I mean, Pac-12 has some nice squads that I'd love to see NC State play against. You could get UCLA again. How about
I
that?
don't know if UCLA can be invited to San Diego for a long time.
Give me whatever the spread would be in that game. Give me NC State.
Yeah,
Give me just
but so yeah, it can be a 3 point though. Yeah, I mean, if there was a catastrophic calamity of teams losing left and right, and all of a sudden NC State just keeps climbing because teams just keep falling by the wayside. I would say this: NC State. I would not be shocked if Louisville is top 25 in the very near future, and that may change because they play Clemson at Clemson Saturday. Um,
maybe they'll rank them just to give Clemson another ranked
yeah,
game.
but I think they would get style points for winning at Clemson and at Carolina. The most they're going to do is lose to Wake Forest. They'll beat Georgia Tech. So you'll get credit for beating a good UNC team if you were to win out. But that'd be a tall order to get all the way up to one of those automatic highest ranked New Year's, especially with all those SEC teams. LSU, I mean, they got four. Well, after LSU beats Alabama,
Yeah,
so
now you got four that are, I mean, basically shoo-ins for at least a New Year's Six.
yeah, so hard to imagine all that being a possibility. So, I think really to like how high on the pecking order can they get in the ACC bowl order, and where does Notre Dame figure into all that? Why don't you give out a game ball on it? I'm going to take a quick look at some bowl projections while you do that.
Okay, you do that. I would, we've talked about a lot of guys. MJ Morris, a candidate. Uh, Michael Allen, a candidate on my radar, did not do enough in this game to warrant a game ball, but looked impressive with limited opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
My game ball is going to go to Mr. Keon Lesane,
Good one.
a gentleman that Ethan McDowell earlier this season, I think in our football preview, I asked him, who's one guy maybe flying under the radar to look out for this year? Who's going to make a splash? And Ethan was pretty confident with Keon Lesane, and he had a slower start to the season. Had some, battle with some injuries this year, right, Matt? With because Lesane hadn't been in all of these games, right?
He's been healthy this
He's
year.
been healthy.
Yeah,
Okay, well, my mistake because it's hard to notice that he's been in some of these games, but he was hard to miss last night. Three
yeah.
catches for 71 yards, had that big deep ball, I think for his first reception to set up what would later become a great catch for MJ Morris's first touchdown of the night. MJ Morris put it on a string for him, and Lesane did a great job of holding on to the football after the Wake Forest defender was waiting to greet him in the end zone. But yeah, Keon Lesane, I mean, really kind of set the tone, I think, with those two catches, because from that point on, the NC State offense was rolling and was not was not falling behind like it was earlier in the game. So Keon Lesane, that's my game ball.
Good one.
A lot of great candidates on the defensive end, by the way. I think it's like
Yeah, don't. Mine going to a defensive guy. So
yeah. You go ahead and list your candidates defensively, but I got an idea who you're giving it to.
yeah, I'm giving it to Isaiah Moore. And by the way, the ball projection I saw had NC State in Charlotte and Duke's Mayo Bowl. So we'll see. We'll see. I think right now North Carolina obviously going to get the top billing for Orlando, um, understandably, right? Um, but if I think that would obviously flip if NC State beats UNC. But I give it to Isaiah Moore. I thought that was his best game of the season, playing with a heavy heart after his grandmother passed away this week. His single-handedly may have turned the tide of the game with his defense on that goal line stand, where he helped on the first tackle for loss. They had the ball at the 1 yard line. They lost, I think, 3 yards on the first play, which he had a hand in on, and then he led the way on another tackle for loss on the second play, which I think lost about 4 yards, and then on third and goal, he had the sack on Sam Hartman, and then the Wake Forest kicker missed the field goal. So Wake Forest gets it to the 1 yard line, comes away with 0 points, and that's almost entirely possible because of what Isaiah Moore did. He also broke up a pass at one point in the game, and I think that was on third down. So I think that was Isaiah Moore playing with a heavy heart too. His best game of the year. So he gets my game ball, and I condolences. I can't pronounce today.
Condolences.
Thank you to his family as well. By the way.
Well, did not know that, but yeah, absolutely. Condolences to the Moore family. Looked makes a lot of sense because he looked like a man on a mission last night. I didn't know if maybe he just particularly hated Wake Forest, but wow, he was
There may
running
be
around
something
with
to
his head
that.
on. Yeah. I mean, he was all over the field last night. Really did set the tone for the Wolfpack defense, but. All right, well, that's going to do it for this podcast. Hopefully, more bowl projections to come out over the next few days. Duke's Mayo Bowl. I'd like to see something else, but
Against
although
Mayo.
it would be interesting to see Dave Doran getting mayo dumped on him. But I would need to see
Yeah.
it to believe it. I would need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, I thought Shane Beamer copped out last year wearing his hat when they beat
Yeah.
UNC and he kept his hat on, and I thought that was a cop out. And I didn't.
Well, that's going to be the interesting part of the Duke's Mayo Bowl going forward, Matt, because like Shane Beamer, that was great. That was a great win for that South Carolina program. Young, newer head coach down in South Carolina. They're trying to build something with that program, beat a ranked North Carolina team that was heavily favored in that game. What's going to happen when you get kind of the teams that had a disappointing year, like
Like North Carolina
like what?
last year.
Right. I mean, Mac Brown's also the media darling, so he's going to play ball. But what happens when you get a team that maybe doesn't want to be at the Duke's Mayo Bowl that much, and maybe has a head coach that really isn't into all the antics or anything like that? What's going to happen when it's time to dump the Mayo? Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I would like to see NC State in a different bowl. I'd like to see them come back to the West Coast so I can actually go down to San Diego and see the Wolfpack play at Petco like they were supposed to last year. But I've got a little bias there. But that's going to do it for this podcast. Reminders before you tune out: subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to us: Apple, Spotify, Google Play. You can also watch us on YouTube. Please subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube as well. You give a thumbs up on the videos, but most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the football season, and with your help, we can make it happen. Follow us on social media at the Wolfpacker on Twitter. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will on Twitter, and give us a like on Facebook. NC State Wolfpack on the wolfpacker.com. Speaking of the wolfpacker.com, head over there now and take advantage of a special deal. For just $10. You can get premium subscription to the wolfpacker.com as part of the On3 network for just $10 through the beginning of next college football season. So that's going to take you through August 2023. Like I said earlier on the podcast, holidays are coming up. It's time to start making your holiday shop list. You got a stocking stuffer list. You got some Wolfpackers in your life that you want to give a great gift for, but maybe you don't want to break the bank over. This is a great opportunity. Take advantage of that deal. $10. Get them some premium subscription to the wolfpacker.com and give them the gift of being an informed Wolfpack fan. We know we need more informed Wolfpack fans out there. We need more of them. And last but not least, head over to rogueshop.com, proud sponsor of the Wolfpacker podcast. Rogueshop.com, that's ROGUE shop.com for your premium Delta 8 and CBD cannabis goods. They've got flour, they've got oils, they've got cartridges, they've got lotions, they've got edibles, they've got all kinds of great products that can help you with your health and wellness, whether you suffer from stress and anxiety, day-to-day life, you struggle to fall asleep at night sometimes, or you deal with pain and chronic inflammation. These products can really help you in a natural way. Husband and wife outfit. The husband is a disabled veteran that was turned on to these natural products and helped him with some of those symptoms, so much so that he wanted to start this business to share it with the rest of you. So head over to rogueshop.com. It's rogueshop.com. They've got a great chat feature to help you pick out some of the products that are going to best fit your needs. Head over there now. If you support us, they support us, so you can support us by supporting them. Head over to rogueshop.com and buy some great products now. Okay, that's going to do it for this podcast. We'll be back later this week with a Boston College preview. I'm sure that'll be a lengthier upon further review, Matt. And that's going to do it for us. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.